store, a very special guest who's here from Vancouver. Her name is Karlene Karst. She is a lovely lady. Just wait. And
that's my bad.
Super. She's better at it than I am. So she is a registered dietitian. She has co-authored 2 books, and her most recent, of course, is this, but she's written on her own, The Belly Fat Breakthrough. One book, as well as another one that will be coming out, I hear, in May. She's working on a deadline with that. June? Oh, sorry. I'm moving it too fast.
I'm not even able to talk if you say that. No.
She's a very busy lady. She speaks around the country, and she's been featured on many shows, of course, and is an expert, especially in the area of fats and metabolism. She's a nutrition expert. She's a sought-after speaker. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Karlene Karst.
Thank you very much. I'll make sure that everybody can hear me okay. Okay, is that all right? Everybody hear me? Thumbs up in the back?
Yeah, louder.
Okay, we'll turn it up.
Flip it on your lip.
I know, right? Sometimes I actually, that might be better. Better? All right. I'm like so impressed. I think this is the most on time any presentation I've ever given has started. Yay, Vernon. These are like punctual people. This is very impressive. No traffic, I have to comment that, right? I think we got from the hotel to here in 2.5 minutes. And Kim showed up right at 6:15 to pick me up. So this is a very punctual town. I like it. Thank you very much for your time and for being here tonight. It's an honor really for me to be here my first time in Vernon speaking at Nature's Fair, and I always say I have the easy job. I show up and get to talk with you and communicate with you. And it's the store and Kim, the sales team, that has all the work in putting these events on, which is a lot of work. So really appreciate their effort in doing that. And we're going to have lots of fun. You've not been to one of my lectures before, but I'm very laid back, very easygoing, and it's your time to learn. So I always encourage you to ask any questions that you have. I have slides to go through, but they're the least important part. The most important is that we're able to clear up any miscommunication or answer any questions or concerns they might have. So a little bit louder even. It might just be weird. See if I... Better? Maybe it's better in the middle. Ah, it's better in the middle. Now I'm way too loud. Sorry guys.
Just don't come too forward.
You know what? It's the feedback with that. I think we got a good technical person here. All right. Okay, so tonight we're going to focus on belly fat, but I always like just to give a little bit of background on how I even got into this amazing industry of natural health. And like most people who start using supplements or start eating organic, they come to this from a place of need. And so I always say that we're all on a health journey. And for some of us it's lifelong, for others we're just starting on it. And for me it's no different. I grew up in southern Saskatchewan. I'm a prairie girl, born and raised, lived on a farm, had a wonderful upbringing, was very, very lucky. Yet when I look at my upbringing and I think about some of the things that my family was exposed to when I was a child, it kind of makes sense because I'm able to kind of connect the dots and link a number of different things. And so growing up on a farm that grew wheat, durum, barley, the whole 9 yards, of course it wasn't an organic farm, it was a conventional farm, meaning that we were exposed to tons of pesticides and chemicals. And you don't really realize, I think at the time, what that can do to your health, or if there's even anything negative that could happen to your health if you're exposed to high levels of pesticides. But my father passed away at a very young age. He died at the age of 42 from bladder cancer. My mother has fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition when I was 18 years old. And so looking back, at the time, no one mentioned anything about being exposed to so many chemicals. But you know, when you are, it's not just in the air, it seeps into the water. We got our water from a dugout. So guess what? If it's that dugout sitting in the middle of a field that was sprayed with pesticides and chemicals, those chemicals seep into the water, we drink the water, we bathe in the water, and we're exposed to it. And so I think it's not surprising, just looking at some of the health challenges that people have, especially in that area where I grew up. And the prairie provinces in particular tend to have very high rates of autoimmune disease, very high rates of certain type of hormone-dependent like cancers, such as bladder and prostate and bladder cancer. And so for me, the health journey started probably much sooner than I would have preferred, but it's been enlightening, and it's been a journey, and it's been great. And the amazing thing is that I am on a mission to always tell people that if you give your body a chance to heal, it can do amazing things. And of course, being diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, I was put on a very harmful drug called Plaquenil. And it's got some pretty dangerous side effects. And I think I spent more time going to specialists and doctors to deal with the side effects of the drug than the drug was even doing me any good. And so I was able to go off of that. And the very first dietary supplement I ever used was something called borage oil. Has anyone ever heard of it? Yes? Yeah. Borage oil is the very first dietary supplement I ever used. In fact, Kim and I were working together in Saskatoon for a company that supplied fats and oils, and one of the products they supplied was borage oil. And there was all this research on its anti-inflammatory benefits, and I thought, I might as well try it. Well, you know what? I couldn't believe how much better I felt. And I was essentially a child. I was 20 years old, using 8 to 10 Advil a day because I had so much pain and so much inflammation and headaches. And what else do you do? You don't know what else. You just take, I don't know, an Advil or something to help take away the pain. And I couldn't believe how much better I felt being on the borage oil. And so that was, I have to say, probably the first thing that got me started into being interested in natural health. And from then, it's just been one change after another. And it's something that I continue to evolve and continue to work with every single day with changes in my diet and my nutrition and my lifestyle, my stress levels, which with 2 kids under 3, it's difficult to keep in check. But it's a journey, and so I'm sure some of you relate to some of the things that I'm talking about. And be patient, be kind, and be good to your health, and you'll be amazed at what all this in here can do. And my mom always says, well, not everybody can move to Vancouver, Karlene. That's always the line that I get. I'm like, Mom, you should buy this, and you should eat this, and you should, do this. Well, we all can't live in Vancouver. You don't have to live in Vancouver to have access to, and have ability to incorporate some of these amazing things. So anyway, it's my pleasure and honor to be here. So tonight we're going to talk about belly fat. This is a hot topic, and it's not just about how much we weigh on the scale. Thankfully, you can all throw away your scale tonight. I give you permission. You don't need to go on it. You don't need to weigh yourself anymore. We are a lot more sophisticated now with our knowledge about weight. And we know that it's not just the number on the scale, but it's where the weight is stored on the body. And what we know now is that fat stored in the midsection is far more dangerous for our health than it is stored below the waistline. And so when you have extra weight in your stomach, it increases your risk of 2 very serious disease conditions. Does anyone know what they are?
Heart attack?
Heart attack, yep. Cardiovascular disease still is the #1 killer in our country. Stroke would be, I think, number 3 or 4. And the second disease would be? Diabetes. Type 1 or type 2? Type 2. Type 2, okay? Primarily related to lifestyle. Okay, so both cardiovascular and type 2 diabetes can be largely influenced by changes in your diet and exercise, and they don't even have to be massive changes. They can be very small changes, and you would be amazed at what an improvement you can see in your health. And so carrying that extra weight, it's dangerous. It's dangerous for our health, but it's tough to lose. And there's a lot of different reasons why we're carrying it. For many of us, it doesn't have anything to do with the fact we're sitting or not sitting on the couch, eating a bag of potato chips and watching TV every night. For a lot of people, we're active, we have active lifestyles, we eat well, we don't overindulge, and still carry the fat in the stomach. So there's many different reasons, and we're going to go through some of those tonight and give you some tips and some guidelines on things that you can change in your diet, and then talk a little bit about the Insulin and some other supplements that you can incorporate into your regime if you're looking at trying to target that belly fat. Okay? So, growing epidemic of obesity, I don't need to tell you this, and these statistics are very similar in Canada. They're actually American statistics, but very, very closely related in Canada as well. In the US, though, it seems worse. Like when I'm there and I'm walking down the street, it's just mind-boggling to see how large people are and how many people are overweight, and children. It's quite scary. But we're looking at about 60 to 65% of our country being overweight. They classify this according to something called the body mass index, which you can find out what yours is. It's not difficult. There's charts and tools that you can use to calculate what that is. And of course, basically 2 of every 3 people are considered to be overweight or obese. What else we find is that people aren't exercising, okay? Not as much as they should. should be. And this is where my mom might tell me, well, not all of us can live in Vancouver. Because when I first moved to Vancouver, one of my first observations was, when I lived in West Vancouver, was in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, I couldn't believe how many people were running and doing yoga on the seawall. And I was like, I come from Saskatchewan. There's no seawall in Saskatchewan. There's no mountains, there's no hiking trails, there's none of that. So it was an amazing observation. And when we look at the data, we actually find that people living in the West are more active than any other parts of the country. And that activity level is extremely, extremely important. Okay, so we're not just talking about weight on the scale. Remember, we're talking about inches. So what is our goal? So instead of the scale, you're going to use a tape measure. Aren't you excited?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Get that tape measure out. Men, you're looking for 35 inches or less. Anything greater than that increases your risk of chronic disease. Okay? Ladies, 32.5 inches or less. Anything greater than 37 increases your risk of chronic disease. So 32.5 for women, 35 for men. Yes?
Just put that down on the floor.
Oh, the basket, yeah. I'm scared. Oh, see? It sounded like me. Of course. God is my enemy tonight. Okay. So those are the numbers that you're looking for, and it's actually a really easy but a very, very good predictor of what you need to be working on, okay? Why is this? Because the chronic disease that we talked about, we mentioned a little bit about cardiovascular disease and the type 2 diabetes. Has anyone ever heard of something called metabolic syndrome? Yeah, a few people? Okay, actually I wrote quite a large book on metabolic syndrome in 2005. And I think it's interesting because I'm selling as many of those books now in 2012 as I did in 2005. And what that tells me is that people weren't ready to hear about it. It was a little too, the concepts were a little bit too, I think, ahead. And so it's interesting now, as the state of our health gets worse and worse in our country, now I'm starting to get all these requests to talk about the metabolic syndrome book. I'm like, I'm not even printing that book anymore. It's like, done, we're on to new things, we're on to belly fat. And, but it's interesting because the metabolic syndrome is very, very real. And so 3 or more of the following of these symptoms here, and I'll go through these a little bit. And the reason I go through these and spend a little time on this is because, actually Kim and I were talking about this earlier, that you need to know what's going on in your body. It's really important that when your doctor sends you for any type of test or check up or you request something, that you follow up and you find out your results. And you be the keeper of those results, because no one's going to do it for you. You need to be your own health advocate. We can't wait for somebody to be aggressive and for somebody to recommend change and lifestyle change. You need to know. So if you've had a battery of tests done and you never followed up, you need to go back and follow up. Okay, because it's really important. How else are you going to know what you need to be incorporating, what you need to be changing in your life? Okay, so some of these tests are not useful. Some of them are actually very useful. Now, everybody gets all hopped up on cholesterol. I don't really care too much about cholesterol. It's one of 200 risk factors for heart disease, one of 200. And everyone seems to examine how they are based on, oh, my cholesterol is good, I'm feeling good. Okay? It's interesting. It's just a blood marker. Simple. That's all. And in fact, you can have high cholesterol and never ever have heart disease. Okay? So if your arteries are nice and clean and clear and you're taking lots of antioxidants and you're eating green food and not very much meat in your diet, you're probably never going to get heart disease. Okay? So cholesterol is just one of those interesting things. Outside of that though, we talked about that abdominal obesity, so knowing your number in terms of your waistline, so I know everyone tonight is going to check that out. Triglyceride levels, much more, in my opinion, important than cholesterol levels. Does anyone know what your triglycerides are? Yes?
They're bad fats.
They're bad fats in your bloodstream. Very good. So it's a storage form of fat in the blood, okay? And it circulates around and it causes a release of inflammatory chemicals, which inflammation is the real dangerous component here. We'll talk a little bit more about that. The triglycerides are a storage form of fat. A lot of people think, oh, I eat fat is going to make my triglycerides go up. Actually, what makes your triglycerides go up more than anything are carbohydrates. And refined carbohydrates. Sugar is the evil. Sugar is the enemy. Okay? You need carbohydrates. You need the right type of carbohydrates. And too many refined carbs and too much sugar in the diet, that's when you're going to start to see your triglyceride levels go up. Okay? So, really important to keep that in mind, and we can talk about some of those more specifically and what you can do. One of the best natural remedies for triglycerides, does anyone know? The best thing you can take to lower your triglycerides? Yes?
Niacin?
Niacin, not for triglycerides, not as much.
Omega-3s?
Omega-3s, there we go. Omega-3s from fish oil, okay? As effective as pharmaceutical drugs in lowering triglycerides. Okay, so if you've got elevated triglycerides, 2,000 milligrams a day of omega-3 will bring them down as effectively as any drug will. Yes?
Is this going to be in the book?
It's all in the book, yeah. And if you have access to the internet, it's all on my website, everything I talk about. Yeah. Okay, low HDL cholesterol, now that's important because HDL is your happy cholesterol, okay? So your happy cholesterol takes cholesterol away from your heart and it takes it to the liver and it's trying to get it out of the body, okay? So it's a transport protein, your lipoprotein, your high density lipoprotein, and it's the good one. So that's the one we want to have elevated. So less worried about the total, less worried about the LDL cholesterol, more worried about that good cholesterol because it's got some really important benefits and primarily removing cholesterol and bad fat from the body and shuttling it to the liver, essentially. So your HDL cholesterol in men should be less than 1. In females, less than 1.295. Again, when you go and get your blood levels tested, you'll be able to figure that out, okay? Your blood pressure, ideally 120/80 is an ideal blood pressure. Anything greater than 130/85, that's when you are classified as having high blood pressure or hypertension, and this will put you at risk of stroke, cardiovascular disease, and is one of the risk factors for developing the metabolic syndrome. As well as something called fasting glucose. Really simple to have your fasting blood sugar tested as well. So we're aiming for anything under 7, anything under 6 is ideal. Okay? So now the significance of this is that if you have an abnormality or a high level of any of these 3 symptoms, it increases your risk of developing cardiovascular disease 25 times. Okay? And it doubles your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So the point is that these symptoms tend to go together. And they cluster together, and it increases your risk dramatically of developing those 2 chronic diseases that we know we can actually do something about with diet and lifestyle. So that's why I always say it's important to know. It's important to take responsibility for your own health because no one's going to do it for you. And often, a lot of times, it's, yes, your doctor will tell you something, but then you got to kind of investigate. You got to read. You got to become knowledgeable. And knowledge is the key when it comes to your health. Okay? So that's why I'm all happy you're here tonight. I always say if you learned one thing tonight, then I did my job. And I accept my paycheck. Just kidding. Okay. Okay, so a little bit about diabetes, very popular topic. A lot of people dealing with type 2 diabetes, a lot of people dealing with various medications from metformin and glyburide to actual insulin injections. A lot of misinformation in this area, but we know that diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, is on the rise. Over about the last decade, we've seen numbers continually climb with people being diagnosed with diabetes. Definitely carrying excess fat in the stomach is going to increase your risk of diabetes. You lose a little weight, that's often one of the prescriptions the doctor will give you. When you go in, if you have a high fasting blood sugar, they do further testing, lo and behold, you're diabetic. One of the first things you might try is say, hey, start exercising, try to lose a little bit of weight. I bet you it will bring your sugars under control. A lot of times it does. It's that simple. Just shedding a little bit of that belly fat really does improve your fasting blood sugar and really improves your blood sugar overall and protects you and prevents you from having to take any other medication. Okay? Another scary thing is the number of overweight children's tripled in the past 25 years. And along with that, so is the numbers of type 2 diabetics in kids even 10 years of age. Before that would be classified as juvenile diabetes. Now they're actually giving type 2 diabetes diagnosis to children 10 years of age, which is frightening. It's frightening, okay? So insulin resistance, this is basically the main job of insulin is to do what? Does anyone know what insulin's job is? Insulin is a hormone. It gets produced by what organ? I can't go anywhere even like it. The pancreas? Right. And what's its job? The job of insulin is to transport sugar to the cells. Okay? So the goal is, the point is, you're supposed to eat carbohydrates, the right kind, It's supposed to convert into sugar in the body. The pancreas responds by pumping out insulin, and the insulin then transports the sugar into the cell, and that's how you have energy. That's how your brain thinks, that's how you function, okay? So what happens is though, because we're eating so much sugar, that the pancreas is having to basically hyper-produce the insulin. And over time, it basically just starts to wear out, okay? I'm making everything very easy to understand. Reader's Digest version of describing what happens in this process. So over time, eventually your pancreas will no longer be able to pump out the insulin as it needs to. And essentially your cells become resistant to it. So they've had so much insulin being bombarded at them that they can no longer accept it. And then when you go and you have your blood sugar levels tested, your sugar is showing at a high level because it's not being able to be transferred into the cell. Okay? And that's when you end up with the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes or something called insulin resistance, which is pre-diabetes, if you will. Okay, so the interesting thing about knowing this is that there's a number of different things that you can do in your diet and in your lifestyle to help control that and actually help to prevent insulin resistance from happening. Definitely incorporating the omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil is ideal and very beneficial at improving the cell's ability to accept the insulin and accept the blood sugar. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So remember, metabolic syndrome, what's the big deal? I always say it's chaos, coronary artery disease, hypertension or high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and stroke. So these are the results of having elevations in some of those numbers that we were talking about earlier. So what are we trying to do about it? Well, we know that a lot of people are trying to lose weight. We have a lot of people yo-yo dieting, trying out every diet imaginable. When I was researching some of the fad diets of the past, I was like stars, the grapefruit diet and the cabbage soup diet and the, what's the one with the cayenne and the lemon juice and the honey concoction that you drink? The master cleanse, yes, so many. Okay? How many of you have tried any of those? I know, it's okay. You're not alone. You're not alone. So interestingly enough, probably according to Consumer Reports, I think the most, if you would call it a diet fad or a diet plan, it's not really a fad, the most successful one or the one that people have had the best results, which has been Weight Watchers. So when they look at, in terms of weight that people have lost and then being able to keep it off, according to Consumer Reports, it's actually the Weight Watchers plan that's been shown to be quite beneficial. And I think what's good about that is it's actually trying to teach people how to eat. It's not about delivering food to them. It's about assigning a point value. It's about this is what you should eat at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is the point value for it, and these are the reasons you're getting those points for that particular food. So I think long-term eating habits can be established. And that really is the key. No matter what it is that you do, or no matter what it is that you change in your health, whatever plan it is you start, I always say if you look at it and you think to yourself, in 6 months, am I going to be able to be eating like this, or be doing this, or be supplementing with this? Is this the right plan for me? And if the answer is absolutely not, you don't think it's something you can tolerate longer than 2 weeks, it's probably not the right thing for you, right? How many people could eat cabbage soup for 6 months? I don't think so. I think it would be counterproductive too, because what happens is you might lose weight, and I've had tons of girlfriends on that master cleanse. Can you remember all the girls in the office, Marcy and everybody doing their cleanse? And we're like, wow, they lost like 8 pounds. And then they'd start eating again, and then they'd gain 10. So all the weight that they lost comes back and then some, because it really disrupts your metabolism, okay? So the goal is to keep your metabolism up and running, to keep everything smooth and stable, and I'm going to show you how to do it in a very simple way. That is not science, it's not a fad, it's not something that you have to buy, it's just easy, okay? So belly fat has become a widespread obsession because we know about how dangerous it is for you, and we know that it's not just about losing weight on the scale, that we know it's about specifically targeting the belly fat, but guess what, that's easier said than done, right? And I have worked with all kinds of people who, the first thing I say to them is, you want to lose weight, I'm just telling you right now, it's not easy. And they're like, really, you know that it's not easy? I'm like, I know it's not easy. It's a difficult, difficult thing. And I think that if you accept the fact that it's not easy, it's going to make it easier for you, okay? Because what happens is people go, oh, I should be able to lose 10 pounds, no problem. And then you beat yourself up when you haven't lost 10 pounds. And that's really devastating, and it's devastating for the psyche. And so again, figuring out a plan that's going to work for you, something that you know you can stick with for sure 3 to 6 months to get your lifestyle changed. It's all about changing your lifestyle. It's not about here today, gone tomorrow. It's a journey. And it's about incorporating small changes for lifelong changes. And that's really the most important thing. And tonight, for some of you, it might be tomorrow, you're going to stop drinking pop, stop drinking soda, stop drinking diet soda. That might be the first place that you have to start. This is how small I want these changes to be when you're trying to lose weight. Okay? So you have to identify the top 3 things that you think are culprits as to why you're not losing weight and try to attack those one at a time. Okay? Because once you get off the diet soda, then you'll be able to move on to the excessive amount of white grains that you're eating. Okay? And then you'll be able to target the amount of red meat that you're consuming every week. And then you'll be able to start adding some supplements in. So there's a very sequential process that can happen that's going to allow you to be a lot more successful. And then along the way, you're going to start moving and you're going to start being active, because that's not an option, that's a must. So every single day, you tell yourself in the morning, what am I going to do today for my health? And I have a challenge right now on my Facebook where every day I want people posting one thing that they're doing today for their health. And then it keeps you accountable. Okay? So every morning when you wake up, you're going to say, this is what I'm going to do today for me. This is what I'm going to do today for my health. And before you know it, these changes start to become part of your lifestyle. And that's how you improve your health. Yes, I want you to lose belly fat, but overall I want you to be healthy. And I want you to make that part of your life and make that part of your lifestyle and your journey. Okay? Women's World featured belly fat 12 times in the year 2010 on the cover of their magazine, and they just actually had South Slim on the cover. I don't know if any of you saw South Slim on the cover with some outlandish claim. You're not going to lose 6 inches in 5 days with South Slim. I'm just telling you, it was like, you know, sometimes the tabloid magazines tend to make a mountain out of a molehill. And when I saw that, I almost had a heart attack because I knew the legal team was going to just not even want the Women's World article on the shelves, because we get all kinds of people calling saying, really, you mean if I just take this twice a day, I'm going to lose 5 inches in the next... No, that's not going to happen. Okay? So yes, you will lose belly fat, and I'm going to show you though that it's a very manageable loss of belly fat, not 5 inches in a week. Okay? So what is belly fat? There are 2 main types of belly fat. Okay? So we've got something called subcutaneous fat, and that's the fat that you can pinch. Okay? So that's the fat that you reach and you grab and you pull on your skin. Not dangerous for your health. Maybe unsightly. Okay? You might not like it. It might pose a problem when you're shopping or trying on clothing, or it might influence the way your clothes fit. Okay? But not dangerous per se. The kind of fat that we know is dangerous is something called omentum fat. Okay? Omentum fat, also known as visceral fat. This is the type of fat that's stored deep within your organs. Okay? It actually packs itself around the liver, and it's hard. Okay? So this is why, especially men tend to have higher levels of this deep intra-abdominal fat, which is why I see some of the men smiling, which is why a lot of men look almost like they've got these rock-hard pregnant bellies. Right? You know what I'm talking about? That is like, and it's like rock hard. Okay? That's not subcutaneous fat. That's that dangerous, deep omentum fat. Okay? Yes, women have it too, but men tend to have higher levels of it than women do. Okay? That's the kind of fat that we want to target, because that deep abdominal visceral fat, that is actually continually releasing dangerous chemicals into the bloodstream. It's releasing pro-inflammatory types of chemicals. And let me tell you, when I say inflammation is the buzzword of the decade, I mean that in every sense of the word. Almost every chronic disease we're dealing with has an inflammatory basis to it. Okay? If you just think about the top 5 ailments people are having: heart disease, inflammatory related; obesity, inflammatory related; depression, inflammatory related; joint pain, irritable bowel syndrome, skin issues like eczema and psoriasis. Everything has an inflammatory basis to it. Where's all this inflammation coming from? In the obesity, it's coming from the deep fat. But where in general? Why all of a sudden do we have so much inflammation? Our food. It's coming from our food. And it's coming from various places. Excess sugar is one of them. Chemicals in our food is another. Excessive amounts of bad fat and trans fats is another. Okay? What we eat influences how you feel every single day. And when it comes to chronic disease and the link with inflammation, it's 90% related to what's being put in our body and what we're eating. Absolutely 100% true. And I believe that because I've gone through it. Okay? I essentially cured myself of an inflammatory autoimmune condition by changing the way I eat and changing my lifestyle. So it can be done, and so that's how I know. And I know when I'm not eating well because I don't feel well. So I challenge you to do that. Put yourself on the challenge and see. Okay? So why is it so hard to lose belly fat? Well, what is the saying? Easy come, hard go, right? But you know what? It takes years. Oftentimes, if you go home tonight and you measure your waist and you find that you're above the level that you need to be, likely that just didn't start yesterday. We're talking these are things, and these things progress over years and years and years. Okay? So it's going to take some time to get it off. Now, there are multiple reasons. In some cases, yes, there's a genetic link. I'm going to tell you a very small genetic link because I don't believe your DNA is your destiny. Okay? I believe that we each have a very unique situation that we can control what we eat, how we live, how we think, the environment that we're in, and what we do every day. We can control that. And in many cases, we can change the way our genes actually express themselves. So just because your mother or your grandmother or your sister had breast cancer or diabetes or heart disease, that does not mean that you're going to have that too. And I believe that wholeheartedly with all my heart. And so that's why genetics, I'm going to give you a 5% on the genetics. Okay, there's a 5% reason why we're overweight because of your genetics. Okay? Next to that, hormones. Hormones play a really, really big role. And there are many different hormones involved with the gaining of weight and particularly belly fat. Definitely stress hormones are related. Okay? You don't have stress, do you? No. Another reason I'm moving to Vernon. There's no stress here. No, nobody has stress. Stress chemicals are huge in the gaining of belly fat because they do a few different things. They are very toxic to our adrenal glands. Okay, so when your adrenal glands shut down, it basically, an entire vicious cycle happens of when you start to store fat in your stomach. Okay, so adrenal gland exhaustion is one of the links to excessive amounts of belly fat. Now, your adrenal glands are difficult to rebuild. It can be done. It's not easy though, okay? And I'm sure many of you know somebody or yourself have exhausted adrenal glands. If you don't know anything about it, and you're someone, for example, who wakes up in the middle of the night and can't fall back asleep, if you find yourself, all of a sudden you'll just break out into a sweat. You kind of feel like almost like shaky, sweaty. If your eyes twitch and twinge a little bit, you might be a person with adrenal exhaustion, and it's very common, and women suffer from adrenal exhaustion more so than men. So that could be one reason why you're gaining belly fat, okay? Fluctuating estrogen levels is another big one, okay? I am on a mission to talk to people about estrogen dominance and estrogen metabolism because I've seen what happens when you're exposed to tons of xenoestrogens and how dangerous that can be for cancer and autoimmune disease and heart disease. Okay? So these xenoestrogens are everywhere. So luckily you can shop in a store that offers amazing food and amazing products for your body, for your skin, that are free of these harmful estrogenic chemicals. Because estrogen causes fat storage. So the more estrogen you have, the more fat you store. The more fat you store, the higher level of estrogen you have. That's a very vicious cycle, and it's a difficult one to break. Okay? So one of the best things that I recommend for that is something called diindolmethane. It's awesome. And it's one of the things that actually can jumpstart your loss of belly fat. If you're somebody who thinks or believes that you've been exposed to high amounts of environmental estrogens. Okay? Diindolmethane, it's short for DIM, D-I-M. Yeah. There's a great product from enzymatic therapy, it's called Estrobalance. It's excellent. Clinically studied, and it works fantastic. Okay? Some signs of estrogen dominance are inability to sleep well at night, painful periods, breast pain and tenderness, cysts and fibroids, autoimmune disease, belly fat, skin breaking out, fluid retention in your feet and your hands. Ladies, does this sound familiar? Can't wear your rings anymore, you know.
Even if you're in menopause, you can still have estrogen dominance?
You can, yeah. Because this estrogen dominance is primarily coming from our environment. So yes, even though your ovary is not particular or might not be producing estrogen anymore like it used to, other parts of your body still continually produce estrogen. okay? There are estrogen receptor sites all over your body. Your brain, your intestinal tract, your fat cells will continually produce estrogen. And in fact, they say now, and I read a study that a doctor had written a report just saying that it's not estrogen women need, it's actually progesterone, because they say, especially in the case where so many women who enter menopause and after menopause carry so much extra weight, they say that that extra fat they have in the body is enough to keep producing the same amount of estrogen as they had when they were 30 years old. Isn't that interesting? Quite controversial, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless. I'm like, actually, you know what, there's probably something to that. So estrogen dominance, definitely one of the culprits of gaining excess belly fat. Then there's another hormone, it's something called adiponectin, okay? So I've got it written down right here, and I talk a lot about that in the little belly fat booklet that you'll get tonight. Adiponectin is something relatively new. There was some research on it about 10 years ago when I was working on my metabolic syndrome book, but not a whole lot. Now we're starting to hear about it all the time, and I think probably Dr. Ross has talked about adiponectin half a dozen times since January. I think every time I watch a clip of it on the internet, he's talking about adiponectin, and he's talked about it in the term of raspberry ketones being good for improving adiponectin levels, African bush mango improving adiponectin. This is the mechanism, is how safslim works, is improving adiponectin. So basically adiponectin is an important belly fat hormone, and it's something that we have naturally, our body naturally produces it, but as we age, the production of it drops. Which is why I've heard from women for the last 10 years, the last 12 years since I started doing this. I don't know what happened, all of a sudden I woke up one day and I just started gaining fat in my stomach, and I never changed anything with the way I ate, or I never changed my exercise regime. I just started gaining fat in my stomach. And I believe is a very strong correlation to when that adiponectin level tends to die off and when we start storing fat in the stomach, okay? So this adiponectin, we need to nutritionally support it, okay? Healthy fats support adiponectin. Eating regularly throughout the day will support adiponectin. Every 3 to 4 hours, it's really important to eat, even every 2 to 3 hours. Eating constantly throughout the day helps to keep your metabolism up, and it also helps to support adiponectin level. The safslim, the linoleic acid in safslim, has been clinically studied to increase adiponectin by about 20%. And interestingly enough, the younger you are, the higher level of adiponectin, and the thinner you are, the higher the level of adiponectin you have. So if you're aging and overweight, well, forget, no, I'm just kidding. If you're aging, I'm just teasing. So what they find, and this is all clinically backed, the older you get and the more overweight you are, the less adiponectin production you have. So if you can bump that up, all of a sudden it starts to trigger the mobilization of fat stored in the belly region, and it stops you from storing fat there, okay? So those are some of the hormonal contributions to belly fat. Second of all, of course, our food, and I mean, I could talk for 2 days about food in terms of what it's going to do for your weight. And I'm often preaching to people who already know all this. Sometimes we just need a gentle reminder or a gentle push, but please don't drink diet soda anymore, please. It's my request. And no more white. No white bread, white cookies, white pasta, white rice, white. Go home, clean out the pantry, get rid of all the white. Yes?
What about all like the corn syrups and everything that are all with like your yogurts and everything now, or corn?
High fructose corn syrup?
Yeah.
That's found in what? Sorry, I missed what.
I was just reading an article on the internet just the other day about all the chemicals that
Yes.
weight gain, like, and then
Yes.
like, sorry.
Aspartame, high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like there was a whole list.
There's like a laundry list.
Yeah, and it's
It's
like
just bad.
everything.
And it's just nasty. And it causes weight gain and diabetes and inflammation and makes us sick, and that's what's in our food. So it's valid. What you read is very, very valid. And so, like I said, you have to be an advocate for your own health, but you got to be an investigator of everything you're eating. So if you're not eating whole foods and you're eating packaged foods, take a list at that ingredient list, and you really, really got to watch it. That's why I'm a big believer in trying to cook your own food. Really, really big. And once you get in the habit of making food, real food, I'm telling you, it's infectious. You feel better, your family feels better, and you can control your weight because you're controlling what you're eating. So really just being cautious, and then it's much easier to select ingredients and make something yourself than it is to try to weed out this packaged food versus this packaged food, because chances are they're going to contain tons of chemicals that are just really unhealthy for us. Yeah, shop the perimeter of the store, okay? It's truly the easiest way to buy your groceries and to shop. Stay out of the center. except for, there's some staples that we need from the center aisles, but just avoiding processed packaged food as much as possible. And that might seem extremely daunting for you tonight, so that's why I'm like, please just don't drink diet soda. That's why if we start there, or if it's, don't eat white bread anymore, eat sprouted grain bread, switch to brown rice instead of white. There's a lot of just little things that we can do that make a really, really big difference overall, okay?
Where does quinoa come in the white or brown?
Quinoa is fantastic.
Okay,
Yep.
because it is
Now-
white, but it's not really white.
That's right. It's white, but it's not really white. It's a grain, but there's tons of protein in it. Okay, so it's different than just pasta or white rice or whatever. Quinoa is fantastic. It's one of the most ancient foods that we have available to us. Now, many people are sensitive to gluten and sensitive to grains. So if you are one of those people, then some of the things like quinoa and couscous, they're not even going to be right for you. And it could be the thing that's causing you to hold on to belly fat as well. But that's getting into a whole different level that I probably won't spend much time talking about tonight. But there is then that whole grain sensitivity and the gluten sensitivity that sometimes you pull the gluten out of your food and you'll shed 20 pounds just because gluten, a lot of people aren't able to tolerate the gluten. Any other questions on that? Yes?
Have you noticed how many products and foods that you find on shelves now contain soybean?
How many foods contain soybean?
And they're
Yes.
supposed to contribute to estrogen levels.
Yes, they do. And it's not.
Like even mushroom soup.
Yes.
Some of our, what they call organic granolas have soy in it.
Lots of soy.
So is soy bad for you?
Soy's bad.
And
My
I'm
kids say that.
We're saying eat soy.
Fermented soy is not bad. Okay, so fermented soy foods, fermented soybeans, fermented protein powders that are made from fermented soy, miso, tempeh, fermented soy. Okay, that's good for you. But soy dogs, soy burgers, soy cheese, soy milk, can it?
So what about beans themselves? I don't know.
Not great.
Not great.
No, it has to be fermented soy. It's the fermenting of the soy that allows our body to digest it and also allows the proper phytoestrogenic compounds into the body. And so what happened is the majority of the soy on the market is genetically modified soy, and it's just not the way, when you look at data on soy consumption and its benefits for breast cancer and prostate cancer protection, and women who eat tons of soy, fermented soy, don't menopause the same way, they transition through menopause much smoother, it's because they're eating fermented soy. They never have any of the genetically modified soy in their diet, and they don't have the level that now we have available to us. So it's there's some good with the soy, but you just got to be careful in the form and the type that you're choosing. Yes, sir.
What's your opinion on fish and chips?
Oh, I love fish and chips.
Yeah.
Once a month.
You see, anything's good for you, but in moderation.
I know, it's funny, sometimes people get frustrated. They're like, we don't want to hear about moderation. We want you to have an opinion. I'm like, but I do believe in moderation. I mean, I'll have fish and chips with my kids at the park once a month. I'll have ice cream. I don't have it every day, but these are things we still have to enjoy our life, right? And if you have reasons why you really need to avoid those things, then you should definitely avoid them. But you gotta be happy, and being happy is being healthy, right? And vice versa. Health equals happiness, and happiness equals health. And if those are things that make you happy, you wanna know what makes me really happy? I look at the clock and it's 5 and I can have a glass of wine. And I'm really excited about it. And at 4:45, I say to myself, it's still too early. But at 5, I'm like, yes. Open up the wine, because with kids between 5 and 7, let me tell you, it's not fun. No, it's great. My boys are amazing, but 5 to 7 is witching hour, and it's the only way I can make it through it. And it makes me happy, and it makes them happy, because I'm happy. So everything in moderation, so you can have your fish and chips.
Maybe with a little bit of pot.
No, I'm not going to go there. Yeah. Oh, I'm in Vernon now, so this is what I need to learn. Oh, okay. No, I'm not. We won't go there. But a glass of red wine, it's the resveratrol. It's good for the heart. Okay? So these are some of the contributing factors to why we're gaining belly fat. Tons of reasons: inflammation, inefficient metabolism of fat. Just want to comment on this a little bit because I find it quite interesting. So we're gaining fat, but the interesting thing is our fat cells have an unending ability to grow, okay? They just grow and grow and grow and grow, which is why if you've ever seen some of the shows on the Learning Channel and they profile extreme obesity, people that get up to 800, 1,000 pounds, and you wonder, how is that even possible? Well, it actually is, because our 30 billion fat cells can just keep growing and stretching and expanding for basically forever until you end up a 1,000-pound person. And that's scary, because that's why you've got to have some kind of self-control, and you got to stop it, okay? And if you've noticed, if you're somebody who has been continually gaining weight every year, think of that. Think of how much you weighed when you were 20, and think of how much you weigh now, okay? And you technically should basically be the same. So look at how much you can grow and change, right? Right, okay. Maybe not 20, and I know having children really does change it all. So ladies, I'm giving you a go on that one, okay? Okay. So this is interesting. So this is what we would classify as a quote-unquote normal, healthy weight range individual fat cell. The white shaded areas are the amount of fat in the cell, okay? You can see the shape of it. It's kind of like tight, and it kind of almost looks like a mushroom there. It's actually the cross-section of your back, and a fat cell sliced in half. And so they're basically trying to show the amount of fat that's getting placed in the fat cell, and how that changes the more fat that gets stored. So here's more fat, and you see the shape of it, how it just goes outwards on the bottom. So this is somebody who's considered to be obese, okay? So this would be that waist circumference of greater than 35 if you're a woman, or greater than 37 if you're a man, or a body mass index greater than 30, okay? And so you can see the way it changes. Now, when you lose fat, and you lose belly fat, and you lose fat on your body, you're going to change shape, okay? And that's exciting. It's not about the numbers on the scale, it's about the way your clothes fit. That's how you will know if you are losing the right kind of weight, okay? Because you will become smaller, okay? Everything starts to shrink because there's less fat. And this is, to me, this is a very scientific, clinical example of the way your fat cells change shape, okay? So nice, tight, little fat stored in it, lots of fat stored in it, and it expands outwards. Okay, cool? Understand? All right. Okay, so do men and women see themselves differently? How about ladies? We're way too hard on ourselves, right? Men, not so much. Women, yes, we're way too hard on ourselves. No, I'm picking on the guys. Okay, so how do we slow the weight gain epidemic? What can we do? Okay, we talked a little bit. Some of this I've already talked about, so we'll just kind of roll through it. Of course, I always harp on the soft drinks, because I really think that that's been one of the terrible nutritional evils that we've had available to us over the last 40, 50 years. It really, truly is. And aspartame is even worse. Like, it's just that bad for you. So please, that is one of the things that I really encourage people. If you make any change tonight, that would be it. Okay, not consuming aspartame, and whether that's the form of sweetener that you're using in your food. I'd rather you eat sugar than eat Splenda or eat some of the sugar alternatives and some of the chemicals, okay? There are much healthier options. Stevia, xylitol, agave nectar, depending on if you're sensitive to blood sugar. If you're a diabetic, you want to stay away from the agave because it will still increase your blood sugar. But really look for a healthy sweetener, okay? We're going to use sugar in our diet, so look for something that works for you. Yes?
Why is xylitol healthy?
Why is xylitol healthy?
Yeah, because it has almost the same calories like cholesterol.
It's the way that it's processed by the body, and it comes from a natural form. It comes from usually from the birch bark tree, and it's actually been clinically shown to prevent dental cavities in children. So there's some real nice benefits that come with it. It's going to have less calories. It's actually sugar alcohol, so it's going to be metabolized differently than glucose or fructose or sucrose. So it basically will contribute very small calorie to the diet. So it is. It's a much safer, much healthier alternative to regular sugar. And it's not going to increase your blood sugar the same way that regular sugar does. And that's really the point, is minimizing the impact on the blood sugar.
What was the name?
A xylitol, and it's spelled with an X, X-Y-L-I-T-O-L. Yeah, xylitol. Okay, so how should we be eating? So something called our after meal glucose response. So this is typically what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to eat, and then ideally we're supposed to see a nice slow rise in our blood sugar, and then over the course of 180 minutes, or essentially the next 2 to 3 hours, your blood sugar should slowly start to fall down, and then what do? You eat again, right? So then you eat again and you get another nice slow rise in blood sugar and then a nice slow drop over 2 to 3 hours. Basically your blood sugar should look like rolling hills throughout the day. Gently rising and gently coming down, rising and coming down. How do most people eat is this. They eat breakfast, and what do they have at breakfast? Oh, a piece of toast with jam and a cup of coffee with sugar. Great. So have that kind of breakfast, what happens? Your sugar spikes, you're racing, you're out the door, and then you get to work and you're exhausted and you're starving because your blood sugar's crashing. So now you're at work, and guess what? Work equals trap for donuts, muffins, cakes, cookies, and all kinds of unhealthy things, right? And so I've been in staff lunchrooms before. They're frightening places. And so, but essentially that's what you're grabbing for. And so you're grabbing for more sugar, which is causing another big spike in your blood sugar. And then about an hour and a half later, you're crashing again. And that's how we live, with these perpetual blood sugar spikes and crashes. Spike, crash, spike, crash. Over time, your body essentially burns out from that. And in short form, that's when you end up with insulin resistance, okay? So ideally, like I said, we want to eat every 2 to 3 hours. We want to slow the release of sugar into the bloodstream. And the way you do that is to eat protein, fat, and fiber every time you eat, okay? So I don't use the word carbohydrate, I use the word fiber. Really important, okay? So you need to have fiber in your carbohydrates. You need to have protein every time you eat, because protein is the trick, okay? And protein doesn't necessarily come from steak. Protein can come from all forms, all kinds of places, and we can talk about where that is. But every time you eat, you gotta have protein. It slows down your release of sugar. It helps to keep you feeling full, and it's been shown to help lose weight and lose fat, okay? Really, really important. If you find it difficult to eat protein foods, you gotta start using protein powders. Whey protein was one of the pivotal things that I did in my life, and I dropped 15 pounds by incorporating protein powders into my diet. Not even kidding you, okay? It's huge because I was eating too many carbs. I was eating far too many carbs. And yes, you need carbs, but you also need to have protein. So making a protein smoothie at breakfast is awesome, okay? And if you want to know how to do that, you can visit my recipe, or I can show you after. Quick, simple, easy things that you can incorporate into your protein shakes. Berries, greens. Now I have one of those Vitamix machines. I'm telling you, I put everything in that. Cilantro and cucumbers and kale and spinach, and my kids are and they just think it's great, okay? So it's amazing when you get those amazing blenders, what you can put in there and the type of power smoothies that you can make. And you will feel like a rock star, I promise. It's awesome, okay? So we want to slow down the release of sugar into the bloodstream, okay? This is a weight loss with protein. So how much protein do you need? Average 50 to 70 grams a day, okay? That's on average. It also depends on your activity level. Okay, so if you're not very active, you can calculate it yourself. Hopefully we're all moderately active. So I would recommend about 0.5 grams per pound of your body weight, and then you can figure out how many grams per day. Typically a protein powder like the Metabolic Reset that's in the gift basket, if you're lucky to win that tonight, will have about 20 grams per 2 scoops. Okay, so if you have 1 or 2 of those a day, you're halfway there, okay? Then you just incorporate some other, maybe almond butter with an apple, or maybe some cottage cheese, or whatever the case may be, and you're easy peasy. You're at the level you need to be, and you will feel much calmer. You will just, your blood sugar will stabilize, and you'll start to shed some of the extra weight. Okay, so that's the Metabolic Reset there. It's also got lots of fiber in it as well. So if you start incorporating something like PGX shakes, or the visco fiber, which is found in the Metabolic Reset, be careful if you're not used to a lot of soluble fiber, okay? And I say that from a digestive perspective because it can make you a little bit gassy, okay? Now, that can be uncomfortable and painful for people. It resolves itself. It's just your gut kind of goes into spasm when it's never had fiber before, and all of a sudden you give it 10 grams at once. It's like, woo! It doesn't really know what to do. After about a week of it, it normalizes. So I always recommend start with 1 scoop instead of 2. And then after about a week, after you're used to it, then you can increase it up to the 2 scoops a day. Okay. Okay. So a little bit about Saslin, since this is why you're all here, and then I'll let you guys go because I always tend to talk way longer than I'm supposed to, and I'm already at 50 minutes now. So I understand if everybody's got to leave, because I had just looked up and saw that it was almost 8 o'clock. Okay, so what Saslin is in a nutshell, I don't need to go through all the slides, but basically Saslin was based on 2 clinical studies that were done at Ohio State University. And what they showed was they took the researchers took a group of women who were postmenopausal, who had a body mass index greater than, I believe, 28, so they were considered to be quote-unquote obese, and they were also diabetics. So a very challenging group of women to lose belly fat. Now remember, belly fat up until now, it's been a taboo topic to talk about spot reducing belly fat. You could give up what you want in your diet and you can do as many crunches in the gym. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose belly fat, right? We can't, unfortunately, choose where we lose weight. If we could only do that, right? Okay, so until now, according to the science. So belly fat has been a very stubborn, very difficult place to lose fat. So what they found in these women is they gave them the equivalent of 2 tablespoons of the safsulin per day. And over the course of 4 months, they basically measured different changes. They measured changes in something called C-reactive protein, okay, which is a marker of inflammation. They measured cholesterol levels. They measured fasting blood sugar levels. They measured triglyceride levels, and they measured insulin resistance, and they measured belly fat, okay? And they measured belly fat by a scanner, so they didn't just take a tape measure and like say, oh, now you're a 32 and now you're a 31. They actually used something called a DEXA machine, which is a fancy way to scan the visceral fat in the body. Because remember, the visceral fat we're talking about, it's not the kind you can pinch. We're talking about the kind that lies around the liver, packs itself around the organs, okay? So what they found was that after the 4 months, they lost the equivalent to 2.5 pounds of fat from their abdomen, or approximately 9% of their belly fat, just by incorporating the unique form of safflower oil that's found in the safsulin. That's pretty amazing. The other thing we found is that they increased adiponectin levels by 23%, just by incorporating the safsulin or safflower oil into their diet. Now, a 23% increase in adiponectin is remarkable, because that's that hormone that we know that as we age, it drops, and we need to nutritionally support it. Now, when you increase your level of adiponectin, it starts to mobilize all that fat that's stored around the belly region, because adiponectin is a really important belly fat hormone, okay? So that was essentially the result of the clinical trial. Now, what happened was the researchers released this study, and then all of a sudden Women's World picked it up. This was like back in 2010. And so women are flocking looking for that safflower oil that was used in the study. And this is where the company that I'm with came into play, because we're like, haha, Women's World, safflower oil, belly fat, ooh, maybe we should come up with something to meet this demand. And essentially this was based on it. So the researchers from Ohio State University went on Dr. Oz with the safsulin product, and they're like, this is what we essentially use, but in a much more consumer-friendly form. Because one of my big issues with dietary supplements is you can buy them, but you need to take them. And compliance is really hard, right? How many of you remember to take your supplements today? Guess what I even forgot, because I was coming to Vernon. So I even forgot. It's hard, and I'm somebody who's been taking supplements for 10 years. Every day. My kids take them every day. My husband, some of you have probably met my husband before, he takes handfuls religiously every single day. Okay? But compliance is hard, especially when you're just starting to get into it. So who wants to take 8 1,000 milligram safflower oil capsules every day? Right? So when they're asking me to be a spokesperson for safsulin, I'm like, if you launch that with safflower capsules, I ain't doing it. Because I go, nobody's going to take it, nobody's going to want it. I go, we got to think of a fun way to make people want to take it. And I always say, taste trumps. I like chocolate, I like cheese, I like wine. I like things that taste good. I like to eat. I like food. I like things that taste good. You gotta make it taste good, but it has to be healthy. No sugar, no chemicals, no crap in it, okay? And that's what essentially safsulin is, okay? It's the unique form of safflower oil that's been quote-unquote emulsified. So they take the oil and they emulsify it into this creamy, delicious texture, and it tastes like dessert. And the best way I can describe it is it tastes like an orange creamsicle, the orange flavor. That's what I remember it as. I used to love orange creamsicles. I'm a prairie girl, we ate orange creamsicles in the summer. And that's what the orange cream reminds me of, is that. And so people want to take it. Now, the great thing about safsulin is, I would say it has about an 80% success rate, which for a diet product is phenomenal, okay? Because this is easy, there's no stimulants, there's nothing that's gonna make you feel jittery or make your heart race. There's nothing artificial in it, there's no sugar in it, it's sweetened with xylitol, it's all natural, there's no artificial coloring, nothing like that. So it's safe to take. And if it's working and we're seeing that kind of feedback, I think that's amazing, okay? Now, it's not gonna work on every single person. It depends on the reason why you're gaining belly fat, okay? But if you're one of these people that have hormonal reasons why you're gaining belly fat, this is likely a very, very good option for you, okay? The other thing that people have been reporting that we didn't necessarily expect was that they're noticing that they're having less craving for sugar and that they're feeling more satiated. So they're taking this 30 minutes before they eat, and then they go to sit and eat, and they're not as hungry as they used to be. And that was not something that I was necessarily expecting from this. And I think that's a function of having healthy fat in your diet. We need to have fat in our diet, okay? Having the right kind of fat in the diet and being able to then balance out some of these hormones that I think are making us feel too hungry, which is causing us to overeat and also gain belly fat. So that's essentially what SASLM is in a nutshell. It was compared in the clinical trial to something called CLA, and some of you may have used CLA before for weight loss. CLA is great. The thing about CLA is you have to take a lot of it, so you need to take about 5 or 6 soft gels a day, every single day, for sure 4 to 6 months before you'll see any drop in weight. Now, the weight that you'll lose with CLA is different than SASLM. You're not going to lose weight in your arm from SASLM, okay? SASLM's all about the belly. CLA is about fat in your hips and your thighs, okay, and your butt. That's where CLA targets. Now, the two together actually are quite a nice pair. CLA for the lower half, SASLM for the upper half, okay? And remember, no soda, okay? And so this is all about fat in the stomach. It's not about fat in your legs and your arms and other places, okay? And they were compared against each other in this, and CLA did nothing for the belly and only for body mass index, losing weight on the scale, and it's won an international taste award. It tastes delicious, and it's won best dietary supplement from GNC in the United States. I mean, in the list of awards this thing has won is like out of control. It's awesome, and been featured on all kinds of major media, not just Dr. Oz. It was on Piers Morgan, CNN. It's been everywhere. And Martel said today he's going to be doing all kinds of other things, which is exciting. Okay, so just quickly going to talk about omega-3 fatty acids a little bit. I have foundational nutrients that I think everybody should take. Does anyone want to guess what they would be? 3 foundational nutrients that I think every single person should take. What's that? No. Yes, they're good, but if I had 3 things that I would want people to take, fish oil would be one of them. Every single day, a minimum of 1,000 milligrams EPA and DHA a day, not 1,000 milligram soft gel. You have to look at the label. I don't have a fish oil up here, but you have to look at the label, you have to read the supplement facts and see omega-3, how many milligrams you're getting per soft gel, or even better, take liquid. It's not cod liver oil from the days when you were a child. It tastes really, really nice now, okay? And it's much easier to get the amount that you need in a liquid form. Much, much easier, okay? Take it by the teaspoon, boom, it's the equivalent of about 5 soft gels. Super easy, okay? Great way to take your fish oils by the teaspoon. Next to that would be probiotics. Disease starts in the gut, okay? So we need to have healthy guts. Our guts have been destroyed by stress, by toxins, by chemicals, by all kinds of unhealthy things in our environment and our lifestyle. We need to replenish the bacteria that's been killed off from all these things, prescriptions and antibiotics and the whole 9 yards. So every single day you should take a probiotic. A great entry-level probiotic, if you've never supplemented with probiotics before, is something like the Pearl. It's a 1 billion count, so it's the low count, but it's a great way to get your digestive system adjusted to having live bacteria coming at it. Because as I talked about with the fiber, if you think you get gas from fiber, wait till you start supplementing with probiotics. And they start doing their thing. And you're supposed to. It's a very natural process, because what happens is the good bacteria start killing off the bad ones, and when the bad ones are dying, they release methane. So it's odorless, but it's there, okay? So the methane gas is the production, is the result of the die-off of bad bacteria. So you'll know that your good bacteria are working and doing their thing when you experience it. So don't be alarmed. Take them at night.
And preferably alone.
Absolutely alone. Or maybe that's a good way to have your own bed, because you're spaced to yourself. No, actually, I think taking your probiotics at night are actually great, because I think it helps reset your circadian rhythm. And I think that our body has a natural process that it's supposed to go through, and I think the morning elimination is part of that. And I think with all the changes in shift working and going to bed late and eating late at night and not sleeping properly, I think it just upsets the apple cart. And so I really believe the probiotics are great at resetting your digestive rhythm. Now, 1 billion is very, very low. So if you're ready for it, bump it up, okay? I usually say a minimum of 5 to 8 billion, up to, I do 35 billion a day. So kind of go up to that, work yourself up to that level, okay?
Up to how many?
35 billion, yeah. And if you've got that, and that's not a therapeutic dosage. If you've got, for example, sometime I'll come back and we'll do the whole topic of probiotics, but if you've got therapeutic issues, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, it's escaping me what else, but lots of different things, you can go up to 70, 80 billion for therapeutic treatment of it with quite great success, okay? So fish oil is a must every single day, probiotics a must every single day, and I used to always say multivitamins, but depending on how well you're eating. Now if you're juicing and you're eating tons of raw food, I took a raw food cooking class, that was like way cool. You guys have to try it sometime. It's like amazing what you can incorporate with raw food into your diet. I was blown away by it. If you're eating that, I'm like kind of semi on the fence about the multivitamin. Now vitamin D, yes, I think we all need vitamin D. And if you're a woman, oftentimes you'll need the calcium as well, okay? But knowing what I know about the way people eat, we don't get enough vitamins and minerals in our diet. And so incorporating a daily multivitamin is a great thing to do as well. So multivitamin, probiotics, and fish oils are foundational nutrients. And from there, if you didn't take anything else, that would be totally fine. I think you can tailor your needs depending on what your issues are. So for example, if you've got inflammatory issues, you can look at something like Curamin. It's a great natural anti-inflammatory. If you've got estrogen dominance, you can look at the diindolmethane. If you've got, you're exposed to a lot of chemicals and you want to detoxify your liver, you can look at a milk thistle extract daily. So it really just depends on what your issues are. And then if you've got the belly fat, incorporate Safslim, CLA, protein powders, and that type of thing, okay? Oh, here's a whole bunch of probiotics. Formula, sorry guys, I talk ahead of my slides sometimes. And that was basically everything that I have for you tonight. So I want to thank everybody for coming. And are there any questions before we close for the night? Yes. Yeah, oh my gosh, coconut oil is my fave. I love coconut oil. Yes, ask away.
What is the biggest environmental producer of estrogen that we're exposed to?
Right.
The plastic packaging that we buy our food in? That's
a great question. What is contributing the most amount of environmental estrogens to our body and to our life? It would probably be toss-up in terms of the most. I think our foods, because we're ingesting, we're putting it in our body every single day. And so really, when it comes to your produce, looking and remembering that dirty dozen in terms of what fruits and vegetables are more contaminated than the other, and taking a look at that and trying to eat organic as much as possible, consuming organic milk, organic eggs, definitely the fruits and vegetables organic, and so because what you're eating is going right into your body. Second to that, of course, anything stored in plastics, okay? So be really cautious with plastic bottles and the hard plastics that from your water cooler. And those are contributing tons of parabens and tons of xenoestrogen compounds. And then definitely remember, your skin is not a barrier. Your skin is your largest organ. So ladies we're slathering moisture on our body every single day, really be cautious of the kind of creams you're using. Honestly, I got onto coconut oil probably for a moisturizer, when I was pregnant with Luca, when I was pregnant with my first baby, and I would like put it everywhere, all over my stomach and my legs and everywhere. I have never gotten off of it because I think coconut oil is one of the best moisturizers out there, and it's so safe for you and it's so healthy, and it just really does a great job of moisturizing. So really looking at that, looking at your face cream. So there's a lot of different things that that we need to look at. Yeah, but definitely if you're somebody like a hairdresser or a bus driver or a farmer, people who are exposed to high levels of chemicals, really need to take care of the way your body metabolizes hormones and also of your liver. Okay, yes?
Safflower oil is an omega-6
yes.
fat, and they usually cause inflammation.
Yes.
So how is it that that particular product reduces inflammation?
That's a good question. It's a very, very good question. And this was one of the reasons it took me 6 months before I signed on to do this. Because I have a best-selling book called Healthy Fats for Life, in which I talk all about how we need to be cautious of the overconsumption of omega-6 fatty acids. So when I looked at this and I saw it dropped C-reactive protein by 17%, which is like off the charts. It's phenomenal. Like pharmaceutical drugs won't drop C-reactive protein by 17%. It's impressive. And so I'm trying to figure this out. And so the best way that I can figure it out is that if you, it's kind of complicated, and I have a new book, it's actually right here, The Full Fat Solution, and I go into a lot about the biochemistry of the fats and how they break down in the body. But if you look at it, essentially if you're choosing the right types of omega-6s and you're getting rid of all the processed omega-6, you're going to help to improve that balance and to decrease the inflammatory compounds. And there was a great book written called The Inflammation Nation, and he looked at the omega-6s coming from our diet, and he looked at farmed fish and high levels of red meat and high levels of shellfish and meat and eggs that come from animals who are force-fed and not allowed to graze and grass-feed. And they find higher levels of the pro-inflammatory omega-6s coming from those sources as opposed to some of the natural vegetable-based omega-6 fatty acids. So the omega-6s go down a pathway. One side of the omega-6 pathway actually produces something called PGE1, and it's an anti-inflammatory prostaglandin, and that's the pathway that borage and evening primrose oil go down. Okay? Remember I talked about in the beginning, borage oil was the very first supplement I ever took, and it helped with my pain and inflammation, and I knew nothing about fats at this time. That's how, it's because it goes down the anti-inflammatory pathway. The arachidonic acid is the pro-inflammatory omega-6. So we need to be really cautious about that. So when I talk about eating organic and eating grass-fed meat and eating organic grass-fed eggs, that is what I'm talking about, because it's minimizing the pro-inflammatory hormones that get produced from those unhealthy fats. So all I can say is the data on this seems to be that it's the source of the safflower oil, where it's coming from, and that it's pushing it towards the other pathway. It's the only premise that I can come up with. Because it didn't increase inflammation at all, it did the opposite. And it might also look, because you're losing belly fat, it's possibly helping to lower inflammatory levels that way as well. Because remember, fat is pro-inflammatory. So if you're shedding some of that belly fat, maybe that's going to help to decrease the level of inflammation as well. And it takes at least 1 month for fats to show up in your bloodstream, a minimum of 30 days, and they showed that there. So it's not over the counter. If you start taking fish oil and the next day you're like, this didn't do anything, give it some time. You have to just be patient. It's natural. They need to be incorporated into the cell structure, which is why 30 days with Safslim is like the minimum that we've seen results. Yes?
What's your opinion on a person that drinks too much coffee?
Person that drinks too much coffee? You know, everybody processes and metabolizes caffeine differently. And I mean, I have 2 trains of thought, depending on how you're drinking your coffee. My husband's Italian. When he goes to Italy, he probably drinks 12 espressos a day. He's like, like it's bad on the adrenal glands. So that's the part of it that I don't like. But outside of that, he doesn't have a difficult time processing that caffeine. Now, if you're at Starbucks and you're getting venti lattes with, you know, vanilla syrup in it, no, that's not a good way to drink your coffee. I mean, I think that you can be reasonable, and I love my cup of coffee in the morning, and I'm grateful. Peace and quiet in my house, my cup of coffee in the morning. That's why I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to have that peace and quiet with my coffee. You guys are gonna think she's drinking wine at night and she's drinking coffee in the morning. This girl. No, so I think it's okay. Now, if you're drinking 2-3 pots of coffee a day, no, that's not good for you. Okay.
No, I have about 5 or 6.
5 or 6. That's a lot.
Cups.
That's a lot. 5 or 6 cups of coffee is a lot.
With Splenda.
Good thing you came tonight. Because now you're not going to use Splenda tomorrow. And you're going to be so much healthier. Aren't you happy to learn that? No more saying no to Splenda.
Alrighty, so what's the replacement?
Stevia or xylitol, or even organic cane sugar, or if you're not diabetic, agave nectar. Okay, any of those. Yes?
You're on the sugar. What about honey? Like, I hear a lot about honey being really good.
Yeah.
I like to drink honey. And
it's sugar.
hot water.
It's sugar. I mean, again, if you're trying to lose weight and you're diabetic and you're insulin resistant, say no to honey.
So if you were trying to lose weight,
if you're not trying to lose weight, a little bit would be okay. It definitely spikes your blood sugar. I mean, it's got a very high glycemic response and glycemic index, so it's definitely going to spike your blood sugar. But again, it depends on how much of it you're using, and certainly safer than chemicals. So raw honey would be much better than Splenda or sucralose, or there we go right there. She's showing one as an option. That's what it would look like. Is that the stevia, or is that the xylitol? And that's what's Safson sweetened with the xylitol. Yes, sir.
What's the best sweetener for diabetes?
Stevia. It has no influence at all on your blood sugar, so you can eat as much stevia as you want, and it's not even going to increase your blood sugar at all. Just be cautious with stevia. There's some funky stevias on the market.
Yeah.
How about
You will know when it's not the right one for you, because it's got a very bitter aftertaste, because it's 3,000 times sweeter than sugar. So keeping that in mind, you need a very, very, very small amount. And if you use too much, it's just wretched. Like, it really tastes bad. But you can bake with stevia. You can really replace the sugar in your diet with it. And I think it's an custom taste. If I can get used to drinking kale smoothies, I think we can get used to. She's like, oh. Put an extra banana, okay, in the smoothie. Yes.
Could you comment briefly on sort of a big subject, the acid and alkaline balance in our body?
Yes.
Maybe recommend some reading.
Acid alkaline balance in the body? You know, it's a good question. I can't honestly at this point give you the best book or the best resource on that topic. It's not something that I'm an expert in at all, so I haven't gone too far down that path. But I hear that there's some very interesting and compelling data to making your body more alkaline. Definitely greens, flax seeds, healthy oils, that all goes towards alkalizing your body. And really good if you're dealing with inflammatory conditions or arthritis, any type of joint pain. Becoming more alkaline over acidic is ideal. Yeah. Lots of healthy fats. What's that? And less coffee. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Is that as good as these other?
Agave nectar is good, but it will influence your blood sugar, so it depends on if you're diabetic or not. If you're diabetic, no agave, no honey. If you're not, raw agave nectar is a really nice alternative. Yes.
Can you bake them?
You can. Yep. Absolutely. That's why they can sometimes be very nice. And they'll often give you the conversion right on the package. If you were using half a cup of sugar, this is how much stevia you need to incorporate.
1/8 cup.
Is it 1/8? I don't think you know, because you're eating Splenda. I'm sorry. Touche. Okay. Yes, ma'am?
Are you familiar with serum peptase as an anti-inflammatory?
No, I'm not. Sorry. I've spent so much time in the last year researching Curcumin that I'm like not even like aware of some of these other anti-inflammatories, but I'm sure there's some great ones. But if you're looking for an amazing anti-inflammatory, I'm sure you carry the Terry Naturally Curcumin here. There's nothing like it on the market. It's like, that's all I can say. Okay, so I think I've like way extended my my time allotment. So thank you for your patience tonight and for coming. It was an honor and a pleasure. And did you learn one thing?
You were delightful.
Okay, one thing I did myself.